later in the show. But first, Australians love social media. No giant surprise there, but we got some insight in the past couple of days about some of the people behind these different social media platforms. But just to put things in context here, 21 million people in Australia are on Facebook. Whether you're active or not, that's how many people have got some sort of a Facebook account. Instagram, which of course is owned by Facebook, Meta, 13.5 million. 5.8 million people on Twitter. Most of those are people who, sook all day about things from the left. People who like to dance and be surveilled by the Chinese government is about 8.5 million people on TikTok. And then, WeChat, which, as we know, has got plenty of connections, of course, back to China, and also the information sources that are censored by China has got about 3 million people in this country. Now, there is an interesting hearing which has been taking place this week in Canberra into the behind the scenes of these organisations. Now, you may have seen some headlines about this when Meta was talking about the Ministry of Truth, or even TikTok saying they are willing to play along with the Ministry of Truth. But our mate James Patterson, the Shadow Home Affairs Minister, who you saw a moment or two ago, is the chair of the committee that is currently meeting in Canberra. He finally had the chance to stare TikTok in the eye. That's how you got headlines like this. The TikTok executives admit Australian users' data can be accessed by employees in China. Nothing to see here. TikTok says it doesn't know where its headquarters are, and so on and so on. Now, I wanted to show you just how frustrating the appearance of the TikTok people were before this committee. I'm going to include many of the questions which seem to be straightforward and the answers which seem to be rather opaque. Firstly, about who are the owners of the company that own and run TikTok?
Is TikTok a subsidiary of ByteDance?
It is indeed, Senator.
Is ByteDance a Chinese company?
Well, ByteDance is very much a global company. You could readily have a look on the ByteDance website to see the corporate structure of ByteDance. But most importantly for this committee, I think, is perhaps the ownership of that company. 60% of ByteDance is beneficially owned by global institutional investors, and many of those companies you'd likely be familiar with. So they include BlackRock, Carlyle Group, General Atlantic, and many others. The board of ByteDance is 60% American citizens. There are 5 members of that, and ByteDance's CEO is represented on that board.
Okay, it's a yes-no question. And when you take that long to answer the question, maybe you don't have a clear yes or no, or you don't want to give one. Well, what about where are the headquarters of the company that owns TikTok?
I thought we'd get further in the second question before we had a disagreement on facts, but let's just try and unpick that briefly. You have previously said, including in your submission to this very committee and in filings in the US court system, that you are either a Chinese company or a Chinese headquartered company, or you have Chinese origins. Why are you no longer willing to say those facts that you yourself have shared previously and not only months ago?
Senator, I'm not saying that the founders aren't Chinese. That's true. ByteDance was established some 11 years ago by those Chinese entrepreneurs, and I'm happy to stand by that.
Okay, all right. So it is a Chinese-founded company. Is it headquartered in China?
Well, ByteDance has operations around the world. My understanding is there are more than 150,000 employees, and those employees are based out of 120 cities around the world.
Yes, but where is the headquarters? Every company has a headquarters.
Oh, well, Senator, there are offices in China. I don't know the formal headquarters of the company, but I'm very happy to provide that very specific piece of information, and I'll do so as soon as I can. My apologies.
I don't know where the headquarters is. I'm just here to throw word salads at everyone here. Notice the very clever use of language about the size of things and international. Well, the question is, of course, about where the nucleus is, where the headquarters are. And then, of course, there's a conversation about the links back to the Communist Party in China. See, here's the reality. China, of course, is able to come up with whatever technology it wants around the world, but it isn't the same as if technology was invented in Australia, in the UK, Canada, or anywhere else, because the government is very different. The government reserves the right to get whatever information that company takes, or they even take over the ownership of companies. That's the way it works in China. But have a listen to this again for a world of word salads when yes and no would be a reasonable answer.
TikTok's internal talking points have previously been leaked to the media, and in those talking points it says to play down the connection with the Chinese Communist Party. Is that what you're seeking to do today?
No, Senator. As I mentioned before, we were founded 11 years ago by Chinese entrepreneurs. We do have a history and a heritage in China. We're not resiling from that. And as you'd likely be aware, we do also have staff in China. I expect we'll get to that at some point in time.
You see how this went? This went on for about an hour. So let's see if somebody who's more of a tech expert has a better question and a better way of answering questions like this.
Why is it necessary for the app to collect the Wi-Fi networks that a user logs into?
So to connect to Wi-Fi, as if the app is connected to Wi-Fi, it would use the Wi-Fi.
It's the device that connects to Wi-Fi, not the app. Why does the app need to know which Wi-Fi networks you've logged into?
So from a CIB standpoint, we do see to whether users are connecting and performance reasons, whether they're connecting through Wi-Fi or cellular, to see if we have performance issues when it's connecting to one or the other, if that's what you're referring to.
But why would it need to store the Wi-Fi networks that you collect, that it connects to, sorry?
Again, I'll have to, my knowledge is we collect whether or not the device is using Wi-Fi or cellular for performance reasons or security reasons to make sure it's an authentic device. But we're not mapping Wi-Fi networks, if that's what you're asking.
Hang on, he didn't ask that question yet. Did you just turn around and offer that one up? Now, interestingly, WeChat, who had an opportunity to appear before this committee, did not, because they have no Australian office. They have no Australian employees, but it's a service which is heavily influenced by what happens back in China. And as we've seen, that 1.3 million people of Chinese heritage in this country, well, they can flip a vote. And it may well be influenced by the local media in this country that is written in Chinese language, which, as we know, has been infiltrated what's happened in China. But then also, magically, when political candidates like Scott Morrison just are banned from the platform overnight. But the alternative Prime Minister in Anthony Albanese was more than happy to use WeChat to try to campaign to this 1.3 million people. Now, I play all of this for you at the start because I know you're not on TikTok. There's a chance that your kids, maybe your grandkids, or certainly someone you know is. And I understand that this is kind of like a casino, frankly, where the whole point, the whole idea of TikTok is to keep you interacting with the app of TikTok, which is exactly the same as Twitter, exactly the same as Facebook, and exactly the same as Instagram. But the difference between those platforms and TikTok is that all of the information that can come down to your location, your keystrokes, and what other devices are locked on your Wi-Fi, if somebody in your house is using TikTok, all goes back to China. That's why it's worth pointing out, and well done to the Senator for trying to get some answers out of some very, very well-rehearsed people.